When I make videos about Nigel Richards, many of you ask, where is Nigel now? Well, in just a couple weeks, he'll be back in action at the Bangkok International Championship against many elite regional contenders. Looking over his potential rivals, I saw one name that absolutely shocked me: Pakorn Nemitrmansuk. Pakorn is an absolute Scrabble legend, known for his masterful word knowledge, strategic brilliance, and his penchant for using every last second of his clock. Maybe the best way of explaining him is this: he's the only player with a winning record against Nigel in over 40 games played. Seeing his name was a huge surprise because he hasn't played in a rated international event in nearly 10 years. At his peak, Pakorn had put together one of the greatest Scrabble careers ever, making the finals of the World Championship in 3 straight attempts. But he was defeated in 2003 by his countryman Pakorn and in 2005 by Canadian Adam Logan. To break through in 2009, he'd have to go through the defending champion, none other than Nigel Richards. The resulting match between these two legends was Scrabble history at its finest. Nigel opens the match with Pa for 8 points, keeping a strong core of bingo tiles together despite duplicated A's. Pakorn should normally struggle to score well on the resulting board. Fortunately for him, the A gives him a bingo of homeware for 67. Nigel hits right back with the double-double of staminas for 90, and after Pakorn's drench holding the J for 48 points a couple turns later, Nigel makes the beautiful overlap of Groma for 43 to retake the lead, while Pakorn receives a devastating draw of EEUUV. His move of Je is worth just enough points to play rather than exchange, and Nigel makes another elegant parallel play of Last for 38. Pakorn finally works his way out of poor tiles with Venue for 26, only for Nigel to answer with Redeploy to surge far into the lead. The 82-point positioning creates 2 volatile spots, including a triple-triple opportunity for Pakorn with both blanks unseen, so he slides the word over for an 8-point sacrifice, which computer analysis suggests is the right call. After playing Fetid and getting hit with Nigel's 50-point Q-bomb, Pakorn draws the first blank in the nick of time and bingos with deleting to even the score, a fantastic choice to put pressure on Nigel with an X draw. Although Nigel holds a small lead, he's in a very tough spot. He doesn't have an adequate way to deal with the newly created X spot while also scoring well enough to outrun other high-scoring possibilities. With reasonable plays like Idly available, Nigel plays a dry instead for the same score, keeping a typically inferior leave. On this board, it's a brilliant move. If Nigel draws the X, he'll threaten plays in that spot himself. If Pakorn has it, he can sometimes steal the win anyway, with duplicated I's and N's unseen to him. If he can draw one of each and then either the E or the blank along with it, he'll threaten Lenition for 89, easily enough to win. Pakorn already has both of the ends Nigel needs as well as the blank, and with his clock dwindling, he extends Drench to drenching for 48, continuing to threaten the X spot. Nigel can't block both Wax and Flax, so after his top move of Ollie threatening Tit for 30 next turn, Pakorn correctly passes up his X play and ends the game now with Waxing. Although he takes a 10-point time penalty, he still secures the win by just 6 points, heading into Game 2 with a 1-0 series lead. In Game 2, Pakorn draws the first blank to start and bingos with Unrules, and several turns later, Nigel draws the second blank after his overlap of Airmen. But Pakorn strikes in the nick of time with a second bingo of Uriist for 86, and after Nigel's Reactor, he draws terrible tiles, while Pakorn draws a third bingo of Ebriate right away. In a match play format, margin of victory isn't important, so Nigel continues to open fearlessly, while Pakorn blocks and scores in response. Already down 200, Nigel makes a rare gaffe, misreading the board and playing Pig, forming the non-word IR. Unlike Hierarnets, Pakorn spots it and challenges it off. Several turns later, after another desperation opening from Nigel, Pakorn plays Dine for 21, and as the story goes, after looking at it for a few moments, he says, "Not enough points," and adds his other letters to form Paludine for an 167-point triple-triple. When the dust settles, Pakorn wins Game 2 by an incredible 367-point margin, which remains Nigel's worst loss by far to this day. Needing just one more win to finally break through for his first World Championship, Pakorn draws the first blank several turns into Game 3 and plays Reptant for 73 to take a narrow lead. Of course, Nigel isn't going to go down quietly. He answers back immediately with Jinkers for 108, doubling his score, and Pakorn's replenishment draw is ugly. Suddenly down big, he makes a brilliant move here of Eon for 14. What makes this so genius is the hooking potential of new, an archaic adverb meaning now. Noob isn't valid yet, so the only hooks available are nook, noop, and noon. The K is already played, and while both P's are still lurking, Pakorn holds the sixth and final N that he can use to hammer the spot next turn, possibly even with a heavy-hitting bingo. Without a P in hand, Nigel will struggle to both block the spot and score even a mediocre number of points unless he has a bingo of his own. Unfortunately for him, Nigel does immediately draw a bingo of Lichted, and for the second straight turn, he scores 108 points to effectively ice the game on the spot. Though Pakorn bingos twice more in the game to trim his eventual margin of defeat, it's Nigel's win in Game 3, 443 to 394. Still just one win away, Pakorn bingos to open Game 4 with Advenes for 80. This time, Nigel has an answer in Grifters for 98. After Pakorn's Virtue for 16, holding back his E to increase his odds of bingoing, Nigel draws the J and plays Jor for 26, his top move here. This move could have been devastating to Pakorn, blocking Exerting for 101, but he quickly spots its much more obscure anagram of Genetrix for the same score, taking a big lead. Nigel draws the Z, always dangerous in his hands, and without a powerful Z play or setup available, he elects to hold on to it with Tiglik for 18. One more good draw could put Pakorn in a commanding position. Instead, he draws the Q and both Ys, and with only the uninspiring Chi available to shed the Q, he plays Doily for 28, hoping to draw U. Nigel draws even more powerful ammo in the first blank and the K, and he plays Cat for 40, again saving his Z for later along with the blank. Pakorn draws better tiles, making Chi a more palatable option to try for a bingo next turn if Nigel opens the board, which he'll be apt to do at a deficit. In fact, he finally draws the massive Z play he's hoping for in G's for 61. The move dangerously puts a Z in the triple lane, but for 61 points, it's well worth the risk. Frustratingly for Pakorn, he has no viable options using that Z that don't burn his valuable S. So rather than play something like Azines, he plays the aggressive Fish for 34, scoring well and setting up a powerful hook for his S to answer Nigel's likely Z plays. Instead, Nigel plays his top-scoring bingo of Freehold for 72, taking a small lead while leaving both spots open. Although Pakorn's tiles are decent, he has no playable bingos here, so he wisely decides to use that lucrative Z with Matza for 48, keeping his S and hoping for vowels. But Nigel strikes instantly with a second bingo of Bohemian to put Pakorn in a major bind. Down by 53, Pakorn can cut his deficit with Unsod for 35. On the other hand, this move closes down the board when he needs to keep it open. So he instead elects to play Pounds for 36, drawing 6 tiles to try and grab the second blank while blocking as little of the board as he can. Realizing that he'll surely win if he can just stop Pakorn from bingoing, Nigel plays the very clever Sapid here, scoring well and cutting off many of the 8-letter bingo lines, leaving Pakorn with only very marginal lines requiring extremely specific fits. If Pakorn fails to draw the second blank, he's in huge trouble. And sure enough, he doesn't. Without a miracle here, Pakorn is about to suffer a second straight loss, forcing a decisive Game 5 against the world's best player. What happens next is one of the most memorable moves in Scrabble history. With his clock dwindling under 1 minute, Pakorn spots the incredible overlapping bingo of Botanica through the eye of Grifters for 94 points, giving him a 40-point lead and leaving one tile in the bag. Amazingly, he draws the second blank out of the bag, along with a nice balance of vowels and consonants, setting him up beautifully in the endgame. Nigel makes his top-scoring play of unsworn hooking fiches for 47, but Pakorn responds with his best endgame move of boats for 42, giving him too big of a lead for Nigel to overcome. With a final score of 499 to 480, Pakorn clinches the 2009 World Championship, finally capturing the title that eluded him in years prior. With this win, Pakorn cemented his place as one of the greatest players in Scrabble history. In 2011, he narrowly missed out on his fourth straight finals appearance, an amazing run of consistent success that you rarely see in Scrabble. After 2015, he reportedly moved on from the game to focus on his career and family, but now you can understand why his return, even in a more casual capacity, is cause for celebration.